Hey, what's up, guys? So, today for you, like I said, if I drop Yuji, I gotta draw Tanjiro. So, today for you, I have what if Tanjiro had galaxy breathing? This was been sitting on my desk top for a while, um, but it was just the idea. So, it's not gonna be scripted or anything like that. So, hopefully, you guys all still end up enjoying this some way, somehow. But yeah, today I'm gonna be giving Tanjiro galaxy breathing. What does that even mean? Well, stick around and you'll find out. So, without further ado, let's dive into the what if right now. So, we start off the story seeing Tanjiro as he would just be a baby, as he would have the same hair and everything would be pretty much the same. He wouldn't be too crazy or anything like that. Well, except there was something a little different about Tanjiro in this one, and that was that he didn't see things like other people. Yeah, that's right. Tanjiro was born similar to Yoriichi with transparent world. So what that basically means is that he sees everything differently. Now, don't get me wrong, he's not Yoruichi in the conventional sense. Dude doesn't have like overpowered like technique and form, and he doesn't have Yoruichi's like just giftedness. But he was born with the transparent world. So keep that in mind. So throughout all of Tanjiro's early life, he saw things differently than other people. He saw people's blood, their muscles, the movements, and frankly, he was just weirded out by this just as much as the people around him, such as his family, would be weirded out by this. Like his mom, his brothers, his sisters, they began to come in more and more and more. And his dad would tell Tanjiro to use this ability to protect the family, of course, because that's what his dad would want for Tanjiro to do. Of course, it would get to the point where Tanjiro would, of course, be in that forest where he sees his dad defeat the bear, even though he's sick. And eventually, Tanjiro's dad would pass from being sick as well, but not before passing on the Hinokami no Kagura to Tanjiro, and Tanjiro would obviously take it, and well, he would obviously train himself to be capable of doing it. After all this is said and done, after seeing his dad do it tons of times, this is where we would then see the end to Tanjiro's dad as he would pass away from sickness some years later, as this is where we now move on to current day Tanjiro. Now, if it wasn't very clear, outside of Tanjiro having the transparent world, dude really doesn't have anything else going on for himself. He doesn't have any sword training. He never sought the reason to do that. So he's pretty much just regular Tanjiro up until this point. Nothing crazy has happened outside of having the transparent world from birth. So after all this happens, this is basically the same thing we'll see as usual, where his mom sends him down to the village to basically, sell some coal because they're coal salesmen. So obviously he would go to sell the coal. So Tanjiro's like, all right, okay, mom, I'll go sell the coal. So he goes down the mountain and he sells the coal and he's on his way back. But this is exactly when the old man tells him that there's demons amok and that basically he shouldn't go up the mountain. So he should probably stay around here. Now, Tanjiro hearing this is like, seriously, demons? Like, come on, that's just some weird folklore, he would think. But of course, to make the old man happy, Tanjiro would oblige, so he would choose to stay the night there, as he would drift off to sleep thinking, mister, don't worry, there's no such thing as demons. Of course, Tanjiro would be completely wrong, as when he wakes up and goes up the mountain, he would see that his entire family has been eradicated by demons. Of course, Tanjiro doesn't know it's demons, but similar to the main timeline, Tanjiro also has a sense of smell, so from this point forward, he would know exactly who was the person who did this to Tanjiro, and his family and whatnot. So after this all happens, this is where we would then see Tanjiro ultimately make his way to the likes of Nezuko, where he would look at his little sister and obviously can feel that she is still warm. So Tanjiro would obviously try his very best to save Nezuko's life, which would be pretty much pointless because Nezuko was a demon now. So as Tanjiro would put Nezuko on his back and obviously keep on moving, obviously having the transparent world and being able to see Nezuko, her body didn't really look right. It didn't really like anything was wrong, but she clearly was injured nonetheless. So he was really confused by this, but after a while, Nezuko would jump off of Tanjiro's back and begin to try to attack him. Trying to resist this as much as she could, she would do a pretty good job. But Tanjiro was not doing such a good job at stopping Nezuko. Again, Tanjiro doesn't have like Yoruichi's crazy strength or anything. He just has the transparent world. So he's not really able to do anything against Demon Nezuko. He's able to hold her off until Giyu gets there, where Giyu would remove Nezuko from Tanjiro. And this is where we would then see Tanjiro get in front of Nezuko and tell Giyu all about how Nezuko's a good person and how that's his sister and that there's no way he's going to be letting him kill his sister. So Giyu tells Tanjiro that, Nezuko's a demon, which Tanjiro would look at Nezuko one more time and think that would explain why her, her biology is a little bit different now. Like how her muscles are different, how her blood is different, because he could see it with the transparent worlds. Of course, Tanjiro would then tell Giyu that ultimately, I understand that she might be what you say, but that doesn't mean that you should attack her. Of course, Giyu hearing this would think Tanjiro was delusional and would obviously go to attack the likes of Tanjiro. But this is when Nezuko would intercept Giyu's attack and stop him, trying to protect Tanjiro, who was obviously too weak to protect himself against a Hashira, like be for real. Giyu seeing this would realize that Nezuko and Tanjiro might be actually built different, so he would decide to send them to Order Kaki and tell Tanjiro that if he wants to do anything about Nezuko's condition, he's gonna have to get way stronger than he is now. This is where we would then see a change of scenes, as we then see Tanjiro and Nezuko go up against the likes of that same demon he fought in the main timeline, where he would get saved by Order Kaki, as you would expect. And after this takes place, Order Kaki is then debriefed by Tanjiro about Nezuko and pretty much how this whole situation has been unfolding. Once this is all taking place, this is where Order Kaki would agree to chain Tanjiro and basically help Nezuko by basically putting her in hypnotism to make it even easier for her to withstand the demon urges. Of course, this leads to Nezuko going into a 2-year sleep, with Tanjiro now going off to begin his water breathing training. Tanjiro would pretty much have to do everything as you would expect, just like in the original, as Tanjiro was still a normal person, pretty much the exact same Tanjiro, just with the transparent world. This all makes sense eventually, I promise. So as Tanjiro keeps on training and basically the whole 2 years pass, honestly, nothing crazy happens here. He meets Makomo and so he meets them, and basically after this happens, this is basically when we then see Sabito basically eventually get Tanjiro to the point where he can basically destroy the rock. And so after that, Sabito and Makomo let Tanjiro go off to basically tell Order Kaki. Order Kaki, after seeing Tanjiro's progress after 2 years, would tell him that, okay, it's time for you to go and enter final selection. So, as you would probably expect, Tanjiro would go to final selection. He'd defeat the hand demon, and this would pretty much just go as you would expect. Nothing too crazy. Literally nothing changes, actually. I don't even know why I brought this up. It literally nothing happens differently. Giyu still tries to attack the butterfly lady. Kano, Zenitsu, and Inosuke. Inosuke's not even there, so don't worry about that. But they're there, and yeah, that happens. So ultimately, Tanjiro just leaves as he would go back to Order Kaki's house, where Nezuko would just now be waking up. But this is when Tanjiro would make a stark trash decision, the first thing that really differs from the original timeline till now. Tanjiro had known ever since he was a kid, obviously, that he could see things differently. I mean, whenever he would talk to his mom or dad or his sisters and brothers, clearly they would tell him, or just anybody, that what he was seeing and what he was able to tell was not normal, not average, not one bit. It was extremely weird and honestly very strange that he could even do such a thing. So, of course, Tanjiro would have thought all throughout his water breathing training that the fact that he doesn't utilize this at all with water breathing, it would make a lot more sense if maybe he focused on making a style of his own. And of course, this is where Tanjiro would pop the question to Order Kaki that does he think that it's possible for him to create his own breathing style? Which Order Kaki would say, yes, that's possible, but I thought you were in a rush to defeat Muzan and do this and that in the fifth. And this is when Tanjiro would say, well, not really. As long as I can take him down and, stop him from doing what he did to my family, to others. I mean, I guess I should be in a hurry to stop him, because he's going to continue to keep doing it. But I still want to do this. I think if I did it, I would have a lot more easier of a time, defending Nezuko and stopping demons and so on and so forth. And this is when Urokaki would agree with Tanjiro that making his own breathing style is not like it's foreign or anything. There are multiple Hashira right now currently that have their own breathing styles, and that they don't actually use the original breathing styles, or obviously the original breathing style, which is sun breathing, because nobody can really do it outside of Yorichi or in a couple of other people. I think it wasn't just him, but yeah. So after this happens, this is ultimately when we then see Tanjiro obviously be pretty happy about this, as he was pretty happy that he was going to be able to try to make his own breathing style. Now, I want to give some expectation real quick. Tanjiro, being in the Demon Slayer Corps, will still have to go and do missions. So I want to clarify something that basically changes big time. So when it comes to Tanjiro basically going and fighting the swamp demon and whatever, he would still go do that because he's close by, he can do that. But ultimately, where Tanjiro would be spending most of his time whenever he wasn't going on missions, which I'm just gonna be saying are a bunch of random missions to kill demons that are nearby Order Kaki's place, that Tanjiro would go to do. And he did kill the swamp demon though. That is something he did. But other than that, what are the other demons? Oh wait, no, never mind. That's not important. uh the Yoshiro and not yeah yeah Yoshiro and Tamiyo, for example, he never meets them in this timeline. Be actually no, he does eventually meet them, obviously, but he doesn't meet them in the same time span because he continued to keep training for much longer. So because of that, that means he missed his meeting with Muzan like he would have gotten in the original timeline because he never actually was there. Because again, he was going early. So I hope that makes sense. Like he didn't go when he was supposed to go, so Muzan wasn't there. So he didn't run into Muzan in this timeline when he eventually went. So let's just now that that's out of the way. Also, I'm gonna be saying Tanjiro spends another 2 years training. So Zenitsu and Inosuke, he doesn't meet them yet either. He meets them in a very specific circumstance. Another thing that I'm gonna also be saying is that Rui has already been killed by Giyu and like some other Hashira as well. So Tanjiro isn't even gonna be able to fight them. And other than that, those are like kind of like the main challenge, the changes here. So I kind of wanted to point those out. So basically, just imagine that everybody in the Demon Slayer universe basically just not besides the events I said, just continue to keep on existing like demons versus Demon Slayers for like 2 more years. Even though I know it's not how that canonically happened, but that was mainly due to Tanjiro's like interference. And since Tanjiro didn't interfere, I feel like that would just make the verse continue to keep going on like you would expect, for 2 more years while Tanjiro was still training, becoming something that was beyond what anybody could have imagined for the kid. So obviously Tanjiro going on missions and trying out these demon slayer forms that he was trying to create and just ultimately killing tons of demons over this time period, he would have accumulated tons of strength. Nezuko basically just sitting in her box and just kind of chilling and living life. So after all of this would happen, this is when we see the 2 years come to an end with Tanjiro officially learning and naming his breathing file Galaxy Breathing. So what is Galaxy Breathing? Well, imagine Tanjiro basically is attacking you with the force of a galaxy. Like how basically like water breathing is like water breathing because you're flowing your movements together, you flow like water. And flame breathing is like and thunder breathing is thunder breathing because it sounds like thunder when they breathe. And like all these little niche things. Well, Tanjiro's galaxy breathing makes you feel like you're in the galaxy, like you're in a galaxy when he's about to attack you. So that's the best way to explain galaxy breathing. But of course, galaxy breathing is an extremely strong breathing style, and so on and so forth. Now, I know what a lot of y'all are probably going to say. Galaxy breathing really shouldn't make Tanjiro that much more powerful, but that's kind of the whole point of the transparent world. If I were to just give Tanjiro galaxy breathing, then frankly, he would just be anybody could just do galaxy breathing, right? Because that's kind of how breathing styles work. You can use like love breathing, right, with a regular Nichiren blade. Breathing styles are unique to the user because they're better with those users, that's for sure. But it doesn't really grant more power. That's not really how that works unless it's sun breathing. But that's because it's literally like the first thing that can, hurt a demon is the sun. So that's kind of how that works. So yeah, that's kind of how I just see that happening. So after all that takes place, this one would then see the likes of Tanjiro continue to keep on going, I guess, as the story would progress, as you would probably imagine. But yeah, that's basically what I'm going to be saying for how galaxy breathing functions. So ultimately, Tanjiro gains galaxy breathing here and there, where he would then go to Order Kaki, take Nezuko, as he would officially begin his journey to defeat Muzan after learning these forms, which you'll learn over the course of the story. Of course, galaxy breathing is unique to Tanjiro in the fact that it's best when he's using it, but technically somebody else could learn it, is what I'm basically trying to say. Like somebody else could learn love breathing, but the fact that Misuri uses her specific Ichirin blade is what makes it different. So it's like, yeah, you can learn it and you can use it, but it's also just like probably not better for you because it's made specifically for the user who made it in the first place. So after all this happens, this is when we see Tanjiro begin his journey, with him actually just going to kill some random demons that, just around. He just kind of just keeps on fighting them and defeating them and stuff. It's nothing too crazy, I don't really know what to tell you. He just fights random demons. He was pretty much been fighting randoms this whole time, but yeah, he's gonna continue to keep fighting some more until he eventually makes it to the city with Tamayo and Yoshiro in it, and he would ultimately encounter them, where Tanjiro was ready to kill them, but they assure him that they're not violent demons, or they don't really do anything too dangerous or anything like that. They ultimately just take blood samples and ask for blood whenever they need to consume it. So they're not really dangerous demons. And ultimately, Tanjiro ends up befriending them, and this is where Tamayo says that maybe she could help Nezuko become a human again. And Tanjiro hearing this would be happy about this, obviously becoming a little bit more, on edge of demons simply due to the fact that he had been training for an additional 2 years with that single mind thought in progress. So after all this happens, this is when we then see Tanjiro leave Tamayo and Yoshiro with nothing too crazy happening. Again, he didn't run into Muzan because that the time for that was like 2 years ago here, so that didn't happen. So once this all happens, we will see him go to the Butterfly Mansion to receive another request personally. And the reason for this is because Kaigayu wanted to talk to Tanjiro personally, because if it wasn't aware, Tanjiro had killed enough demons to this point to be considered for the Hashira status, right? He was like Hashira level because of how many demons he killed, and the Hashira wanted to meet him personally. So Tanjiro went there with Nezuko, and as they went there, they got there, and they basically saw the Hashira, and the Hashira began to talk to Tanjiro. And at this point, the Demon Slayer Corpse isn't even aware that Tanjiro has been harboring a demon, or Nezuko to be more specific. So they didn't really even know that. Outside of Giyu, obviously he knew that, but nobody else knew that. So as you would probably expect, when they find out that Tanjiro was doing this, they would all not enjoy what Tanjiro was doing. They would all be kind of upset and mad and wondering why he was breaking the rules and why he would do something so reckless and dangerous. But Tanjiro would assure them that Nezuko wasn't dangerous and that she was a pretty cool, demon, because that's his sister, and well, she's different than other demons, he would say. But honestly, the Hashira aren't buying it for like 5 seconds, and they think that they should, kill Nezuko right then and there. But Tanjiro tells them that's not going to be happening and that she's completely harmless. So Sanemi, not really agreeing with any of this and being more boastful out of the Hashira, would obviously try to attack Nezuko, which Tanjiro would immediately stop from happening with ease because he's Tanjiro and he has galaxy breathing. And galaxy breathing is beyond any breathing style, except maybe sun breathing. I would say they're maybe equal. Probably not. I mean, they're only equal because, transparent world is way more utilized within galaxy breathing. It's kind of the whole reason why it's unique to Tanjiro and why it's so powerful. But anyways, Sanemi would attempt to attack the likes of Tanjiro, but it would horribly fail because Tanjiro would easily stop him using the first form of galaxy breathing, which would be collapsing stars, which basically is Tanjiro swiping away any attack. Basically, Tanjiro throughout this time, I guess I could tell you how many forms he has. He has 3 total forms of galaxy breathing. Why only 3 forms? Because that's all he needs. So collapsing stars, it works in 2 different ways. Collapsing stars can be used on defense or offense. Collapsing stars can be used to block multiple different attacks from an opponent, like collapsing stars, of course, or it can be used like an offensive attack where the opponent is slashing multiple times with the opponent, like collapsing stars. You get it? Basically, the stars, if you had to look at it from an animation perspective, it'd be like Tanjiro is in this big galaxy and his sword is like a star, and basically he's just blocking all the attacks with ease. Basically, that's what it looks like there's just stars coming out of nowhere just blocking them, and it's like they're falling, right? So that's how it looks. So after all this happens, this is basically when we would then see the likes of Sanemi be shocked at Tanjiro's skill and prowess, as he would immediately get sent flying backwards and get thrown into a tree. Every one of the Hashira is shocked by this, but not necessarily, because they all knew Tanjiro was Hashira level. Obviously, Obanai would be shocked by this and want Tanjiro to try that against him, of course, but that just wouldn't happen because Kaigayu would obviously show up and prevent anything further from taking place or happening here. Once this is all done, this is when we would then see Tanjiro basically tell them that Nezuko really is harmless and that they shouldn't fight each other, and that it wouldn't go well for them because, trust me, I can see all of your weak points. With them not really understanding what that means, but they would know Tanjiro really was Hashira status level. So with that being said, Tanjiro becomes the 10th Hashira, which I don't even really think that's how that works, and I think there can only be 9, but we're going to say there's 10 and that they can just add Hashira whenever they get ready, because the more the merrier. So Tanjiro becomes the 10th Hashira, and of course, because I'm going to be just shoehorning this in, Inosuke and Zenitsu were just at the Butterfly Mansion as well at this point, and they had already learned total concentration, constant breathing. Zenitsu and Inosuke during this time period have just went on to fight multiple different demons. Now, one thing that I am going to be changing that was plot relevant is, unlike in the original timeline, I'm going to be saying two things just did not happen. For one, Rengoku never went on the Infinity Castle, so he never fought Imu and he never fought Akaza yet. And another thing that never happened is that the fight in the entertainment district also never happened. Tengen never took Zenitsu and Inosuke there to fight the likes of Daki and Gitaru. The reason why that never happened is because the events just hadn't played into the right way for it to happen. For example, the lower moons haven't been eradicated and so on and so forth. You see what I mean? They haven't all been taken out. Rui was defeated by Giyu, yeah, but like Emu is still alive and he hasn't made his move yet. And he's just been waiting for the right moment to strike is what I'm going to be saying. So because all these pillars haven't just taken place yet, those events haven't happened yet. But because Tanjiro is here and is officially a Hashira, that is where things are just going to be changing dramatically. Tanjiro gets assigned by Kaigayu to basically do a test of strength, which would be basically sending him along with Zenitsu and Inosuke, and obviously allowing him to take Nezuko to basically go check out the Infinity Train, where potentially there could be a very powerful demon there to basically get rid of them, he would say. So Tanjiro would obviously accept this, as he would take Nezuko with him, as he would go and meet Zenitsu and Inosuke, where they would have similar interactions. That whole interaction with Zenitsu trying to chase Nezuko around happens, but Inosuke doesn't really try to kill Nezuko like he did originally, because he's already been briefed on the situation by Tanjiro beforehand, so he didn't find it out and then get told. So that's kind of how that went. So once all this happened, this is when we would then see him make his way to the Infinity Train. Now, one thing you need to understand about Tanjiro training for 2 more years is, the good thing is he already unlocked total concentration, constant breathing. I thought that was something that I just didn't need to say, but yeah, if he did 2 more years of training in Tanjiro in the main timeline, he progressed extremely fast anyways. I feel like that would obviously just make the most sense. So he already has that under his belt, and obviously he's really efficient with his breathing in general, being able to use it to not really heal, but to slow down poison and injuries. He's elite with it. He's got the massive amount of skill with his breathing. So once this is done, this is when we then see Tanjiro make his way to the next part, which would be him basically going on to look around and basically see if he can find anything else suspicious. Of course, since Rengoku isn't here this time and it's actually just the 4 of them, this would lead to them all getting put under like the sleep technique. Of course, Tanjiro would quickly find out that he was in a dream, that everything around him was fake, where he would get himself out of there ASAP. Once Tanjiro escapes the dream world, almost killing himself there for a second, this is when Tanjiro would then wake up the others, where they would begin to battle against Imuru, I think that's his name, and his attendants and all his weird stuff that was going on in the train. Once this finishes, this is when we would then see Tanjiro use Clear Blue Sky to hit Imuru. I think is how you say his name. I might be making his name sound really stupid, or I might just be saying it wrong. I don't know. I might need to look up how people say his name, but I think I'm saying that right. You guys know what I'm talking about. The demon that makes you go to sleep, that was on the train. Lower rank 1. So once he's defeated by Tanjiro's Clear Blue Sky, which before you guys even ask me why it's Clear Blue Sky, obviously Tanjiro with 2 years of training, if he figured it out against Rui at the last second, he clearly would have figured out that, if you use Hinukami no Kagura, you clearly can use another style of breathing. And he would have figured out that sun breathing wasn't really better than his galaxy breathing, or at least sun breathing wasn't really better for his body. That was the whole point of him inventing galaxy breathing, because water breathing wasn't better for his body either. So because of this is ultimately where we then see Tanjiro have 3 breathing styles: his own, water breathing, and of course sun breathing. So Tanjiro was pretty versatile, and that meant that he had offense, extreme offense, and his own form, which kind of was a mixture of both. So Tanjiro was pretty broken at this point, and that's perfectly fine. So once Tanjiro basically used Clear Blue Sky by accident, as he didn't even know that was like the second form of sun breathing, he just used Clear Blue Sky because he thought that it would be a clear blue sky. It would ultimately beat the demon. And once this is over, this is where we would then see Tanjiro basically have the train like crash. And as Tanjiro gets off, again at Hashira status, Hashira level, because he's beating so many demons and gotten so strong, this is where we would then see the likes of Akaza show up, noting how powerful Tanjiro just genuinely was. And this is where we would then see one of the first times in any of my Tanjiro what ifs, Akaza and Tanjiro actually have a legitimately impressive battle, simply due to the fact that A, Rengoku wasn't actually here to help Tanjiro, and B, he has trash support. Again, Rengoku is not here, so that's kind of where we need to talk about that. So this is when Tanjiro began his hardest to try to fight the likes of the upper three. He tried to take him down, defeat him, show off his status. But Akaza immediately would have Tanjiro on the back burner. Dude off rip is being forced to use water breathing to defend himself because, well, water breathing is a defensive breathing style, and Tanjiro's off rip having to use it really should just show you how powerful Akaza just genuinely is. Dude didn't even go for his own, he didn't even go for sun breathing. He went straight for water breathing for defensive purposes. And although Tanjiro was doing really good at defending against Akaza, Akaza had seen tons of different water Hashira in his time. The one thing that Tanjiro gained from this was that Akaza did not know that Tanjiro was, in fact, not a water breather. He wasn't a water Hashira. That is what Tanjiro had him thinking, though, which is why he went immediately to water breathing for defense, because I had said already that collapsing stars could be used as a defensive technique. Of course, Tanjiro knew this on purpose and did this on purpose to throw off the likes of Akaza. Once this happens, and Akaza is pretty sure Tanjiro has exhausted all of his water breathing forms, which of course Tanjiro would use all of them to make Akaza think he was like a water Hashira, which again, Akaza would be sitting there thinking, wow, this guy really has weak water breathing to be a water Hashira, right? He's thinking it's not that impressive. So as Tanjiro fakes Akaza out with the 10th form, you know, he tries to fake him out with that, thinking that that was actually what he was going for. But this is exactly when Akaza is shocked to see Tanjiro completely change everything, as he would go for a clear blue sky against the likes of Akaza, which would actually cut off both of Akaza's arms, shocking him, as they would instantly regenerate. Akaza being shocked that Tanjiro could even do something like that and was wondering what the heck that was, as it wasn't water breathing, that was for sure. Akaza would immediately activate his compass because, well, he wants to make sure that Tanjiro doesn't actually do anything too crazy, and he already knows Tanjiro's like Hashira level, and he's pretty powerful, and he's already asked Tanjiro to become a demon in this battle, but Tanjiro said no chance. So Akaza and Tanjiro begin to just battle it out again, like with multiple sword strikes. Just imagine Rengoku versus like Tanjiro, or Giyu versus Akaza, right? That's what you need to. Did I just say Rengoku versus Tanjiro? I meant to say like Rengoku versus Akaza, or Giyu versus Akaza. That's basically what it looks like. So just look at those two fights, and then that's basically what they're doing right now. They're slashing and clashing and just going at it relentlessly. So eventually it gets to a point where Tanjiro is basically getting tired of using sun breathing, as again, his body just isn't made for it. Now, thanks to him having the transparent world, he's able to do extremely well against the likes of Akaza. In fact, he's pretty much on equal footing with Akaza as it stands, which Akaza would be shocked about, as he should have infinite stamina and stuff. But remember, Tanjiro has refined his breathing techniques to the utmost limit, so he was able to keep going for now. Ultimately, Tanjiro was waiting for Akaza to leave an opening, which he would obviously do, where Tanjiro would take advantage of it and reveal another form of galaxy breathing. This form being none other than Cosmic Eraser. Now, this is the second form of galaxy breathing, and basically what it does is Tanjiro in one stride, one very quick first step. Basically, think about this, because, you know, I like to incorporate things from other shonen and stuff into certain things when I'm making things for what ifs. So imagine like Rob Lucci's Royal Shiki technique, or shave, where basically you kick your foot like 7 times. So what Tanjiro is going to do here is he's going to kick his foot 5 times fast. And when he does that, imagine Tanjiro basically using the fastest quick first step off that 5th foot to basically move as fast as humanly possible. And basically, it looks like a cosmic like being is coming at you. And obviously it's called Cosmic Eraser because it's basically like a strike. Like it's basically like a draw sword technique. Basically, Tanjiro basically draws his sword, uses the fastest amount of speed he could do, and basically it's an eraser because it's meant to just cut your head off as a demon and erase you from like existence. That's basically how it works. So it's basically like you just got hit by, well, a Cosmic Eraser. So Tanjiro would obviously go for Cosmic Eraser, his fastest attack, and obviously having the transparent world, it wasn't going to take forever for Tanjiro to find the opening on Akaza. And when he found it, he would have slashed Akaza's neck off right then and there, shocking Akaza, as he couldn't even believe it. He couldn't even react to Tanjiro's speed at that moment, as he had moved at a speed that was beyond superhuman. And I don't really think this is too crazy, considering Kano literally has like the Scarlet Eyes, I think is what that's called, where basically she can do something similar, but it requires her to lose vision Tanjiro, when he does this, basically just pushes his speed to the max, and obviously it's much slower for a longer period of time after using the second form of galaxy breathing. But if he succeeds in, taking down his target, then it doesn't really matter if he weakens his overall stats after that. So once this happens, Akaza's head is beheaded, and because this isn't like the Infinity Castle, I'm just gonna be saying Akaza's head would not regrow, especially considering that on top of this, Akaza basically would now be worrying about the sun coming up, as he was kind of having the same type of battle with the Goku he was having with Tanjiro. Except the battle was escalating extremely fast because Tanjiro switched from water to sun, and then out of nowhere came out of the water works with galaxy breathing, and obviously Akaza just wasn't ready for all these things. So before he even knew it, the sun was coming out. So if Akaza was going to start regenerating his head, it doesn't matter because, well, he's about to get burnt to a crisp from the sun. So Akaza is done. And that means Tanjiro is the winner of the battle. High difficulty. And with that being said, this is when Zenitsu and Inosuke would take Tanjiro back to the Butterfly Mansion to get him all healed and recovered, as dude was extremely bruised and battered from fighting Upper 3. Of course, it wasn't just some cakewalk easy battle like it can be in some of my other what ifs. Once this all happens, of course, this is where we would then see Tanjiro be happy that he was able to defeat Akaza, and everybody in the Demon Slayer Corps, especially the Hashira, would praise Tanjiro, but this would obviously not be the end, as they still had to take down the likes of Muzan Kabutsuji. So with that happening, this is where we would then see Tanjiro get back up, start doing some recovery. He starts talking to Kano, he starts trying to talk to her, trying to raise her up. Okay, maybe that doesn't happen, but he actually kind of does do that, but not intentionally. So when that all takes place, we would then see Tanjiro get another mission, but this time he's going to go with 2 Hashira. He's going to be going with Rengoku, Tengen, himself, and Zenitsu and Inosuke will accompany him once more. And of course, he will take the likes of his little sister, Nezuko, with him as well, to basically go and check out the entertainment district. Tengen had just now sent his wives in, so that's on a plot hole that he had just now done it. And they had basically went off communications. So because of that, he wanted to go and basically check everything out and see what was going on. And that basically something crazy might be happening over there in the entertainment district. So that's when these 3 Hashira, Zenitsu, Inosuke, and Nezuko, of course, would all head off. And once they get to the entertainment district, I'm not gonna lie to you, they basically get to Gitaru and like Daki faster because Rengoku's there, and they find it out way quicker. Of course, Inosuke and Zenitsu would still help all the citizens and stuff. They would help all the people there that was getting trapped by Daki and stuff and her bamboo shoot. And once this happens, this is where we would then see like Tanjiro versus Daki 1v1. It wouldn't have happened. It wouldn't have reached this point like it would have originally in the same way, but it still ends up happening. So Tanjiro would defeat Daki. Daki's not stronger than Akaza, so since Tanjiro was able to hide Akaza, I don't really think I need to go into detail. Daki just kind of fought her compared to Gitaru anyways, so she would get her head cut off, like 5 times before Tanjiro was just like, why won't she die? Tanjiro was also cutting her head off with sun breathing, not even using galaxy breathing, which was, again, what his body was made for. Of course, him being able to do this very easily thanks to having the transparent world. So after a while, this is where we would then see Daki just basically start to be sad and start to cry, which would ultimately lead Gitaru to coming out and saying that he was going to avenge her, which was the worst mistake he could have ever made. Except not against Tanjiro, because when Daki and Gitaru start to jump Tanjiro, it actually works extremely well. Tanjiro isn't poisoned or anything, but he's definitely getting pushed back now effectively and actually struggling to maintain his form, as you would probably imagine. So yeah, eventually Inosuke comes in with some clutch support helping Tanjiro so that he doesn't die right here. And because of Inosuke, Tanjiro doesn't, get poisoned, which would have been lethal and he probably would have died. So thanks to Inosuke doing that, that was big, huge clutch. Rengoku eventually finds Daki and, he finds, Gitaru's fight. And Tengen and Rengoku decide to jump the likes of Gitaru, whereas Tanjiro, Inosuke, and Zenitsu, they all work together to fight the likes of Daki, and in about no time flat, Gitaru and Daki's heads are both sent flying off of their bodies. Once this happens, this is where they would both bicker, where Tanjiro would tell them that wasn't right for siblings to do such a thing. And of course, that would be the end of that, and that would be the end of the Entertainment District arc. And as in some of my other what ifs, or pretty much all of them, the Swordsman Village arc just doesn't happen. And I mean, like, the Swordsman Village arc just doesn't happen in general. Like, literally at all. Like, it's not just the fact that Mitsuri and Mushiro die. the Sorcery Village arc was supposed to happen 2 years ago, and basically because Tanjiro wasn't there, Muzan never figured out like basically where the Demon Slayer's like swords were. And I know that's not inherently what happened, but because of Tanjiro's existence, it made Muzan more like, oh, we need to go take care of things. But that hadn't happened, and he had never met Tanjiro either, so he wasn't like worried about the Hanafuda earrings or any of that. So that just doesn't happen. So just imagine Michiro and Mitsuri went to go get their swords. Nothing bad happened. No demons attacked. Everything was all cool. And Tanjiro didn't need a new sword, so he didn't even go there. So there's just no reason to cover it. And I meant to say this earlier, but Tanjiro has a very special blade that was still made by the same person who made it in the main timeline. I forgot his name, but he still made his sword, but it's special. And Tanjiro's blade is also not a red blade. It is just a black blade like it is in the original. So there that goes too. Once this happens, this will then see basically that arc gets skipped because it just doesn't happen here. And next thing we see would be none other than the Hashira training arc. And since Tanjiro is a Hashira, he wouldn't be training against the other Hashira. He wouldn't want to fight them because it's just who Tanjiro is. He would just be doing his own training, which would probably be teaching them how to move faster, considering he has the whole 5 steps kick thing with his second form. So once this all happens, this is where we then see Tamayo work with the Demon Slayers. Nezuko gets the serum, and basically Muzan goes to attack Kagayu, where he would basically almost kill them, but he would succeed and basically trapping Muzan. This is where we would then see Gyome, Tanjiro, and they basically jump Muzan, and Muzan basically has no choice but to send them all into the Infinity Castle. Don't worry, Muzan isn't dead yet because it's just not happening here. Tanjiro just has galaxy breathing, no overpowered crazy abilities. He's still in the versus constraints, even if he's stronger than he was when he defeated the likes of Akaza by this point, as he was just way stronger. So as we then move on, this is where we would then see the Infinity Castle happen with the main fights going as you would expect, except none of the Hashira are actually dead and Tingen is still in service. So ultimately, what we would then see happen is we would see Giyu help Shinobu take on the likes of Doma, and we would see Tanjiro take on the likes of Akaza was already dead, so Tanjiro would actually just help them defeat Doma. I was actually gonna say Nakame, he would go help them defeat Nakame, or he was gonna go help Zenitsu fight Kaigaku, Kaigaku, not Kaguya, but or Kaigayu. Kaigaku, yeah. I don't know, but you know what I mean. Like Kaguya, and then like Kaigaku. They're two different characters. Like Kaigaku's the demon, Zenitsu's like rival, and then like I don't know why I said their names so similar. Kind of just butchered both of those, but you get what I'm happening. So Zenitsu goes and fights him. He wins, of course. It's Zenitsu and was way stronger. And obviously, since Daki and Gitaru just died, obviously that would just make him just have turned into a demon. Up until then, he was still just a demon slayer. So whereas Zenitsu got stronger because of the 2-year difference, that would not be the same for him. So once this happens, this is where we would then see Tanjiro making his way to basically behead Doma, as with Giyu and Shinobu's help and him being Hashira level and having galaxy breathing, this would not be that difficult, as he would obviously use Cosmic Eraser to just cut Doma's head off, as he would try to summon his Buddha, but it just wasn't happening. That weren't letting that happen, and it happens before Inosuke can spin the block for his mom, and Kano can really even show up. So now that Doma was done, Akaza was done, this will leave Kokushibo. This will be within Shinobu, Tanjiro, Giyu, Rengoku, and Tingen, along with the likes of Zenitsu, Inosuke, and Kano all jump Kokushibo, or not just them, because of course Muichiro was still here in this timeline. He wasn't dead, so he was able to help Sanemi and Gyome with Giyu's help, and basically they all come to help him as well. And obviously with Nakame basically being taken out, the Infinity Castle will slowly start to deteriorate, as we would see this battle continue to escalate more and more. Of course, with Shinobu's poison, Tanjiro's galaxy breathing, and Kano's help, along with the likes of the other Hashira, this just was not going to go well for Kokushibo. Except Kokushibo was a master, so he was still making it like extreme diff for them, even though he was just by himself and he had all these different opponents coming at him. Of course, this we would then see the end to pretty much upper 5 and 4, as we would basically see like Mitsuri take them on, or we would see Obanai help her take them on, as we would then see them all die. So basically the only one left at this point is Kokushibo and Muzan, who was still reeling from all of the nerfs she had just gotten from Tamayo and Kaguya's plan. So now we would then see is there's just no chance for Kokushibo, as Tanjiro will unlock his Demon Slayer mark. Which, if you probably hadn't expected this to happen, this we would then see Tanjiro get the selfless state on top of that, where Tanjiro would unleash a form he had only theorized he could possibly do, and that was none other than the fourth form, which would be none other than Tanjiro's bread and butter. Which, if you don't know, the fourth form is basically going to be like how it would be if Tanjiro basically did the 13th form like Yoriichi can do, basically. It's basically where Tanjiro basically combines all the forms and basically named it a brand new form. Basically a mode where he basically combines the ultimate 3 forms into one in particular form, which he would call Andromeda Void. Where basically Tanjiro, again, he basically attacks you so many times it feels like you're in a void in the Andromeda galaxy. And of course, this would hand on Kokushibo, and he would be impressed, and he would obviously praise Tanjiro for such an incredible form. Of course, this would have obviously ended in Kokushibo getting beheaded, as everybody would be happy about this. And because Tanjiro got his Demon Slayer mark, of course, and because Kokushibo was Kokushibo, he would survive getting beheaded and obviously get up with the intent to attack the rest of the Demon Slayers. But again, since Tanjiro just unlocked his Demon Slayer mark, this meant they would also gain their Demon Slayer marks as well, slowly but surely. As remember, the Hashira training arc was for them to get it, and of course, not every Demon Slayer had got it during it, but they had gotten it right here and now, and it was starting to happen right as we would speak with like Iyome and Sanemi for sure. And that was more than enough to overwhelm the more amped or more like just let out Kokushibo, especially with him still reeling from Shinobu's poison that she was definitely still getting in there whenever she could. Of course, this would be the end to Kokushibo, as now it would just be Muzan left. And frankly, this would then see Tanjiro show off the third form of galaxy breathing, which would be Nebula, oh my god, I think I butchered that. Nebula Requiem, which the reason why he didn't use that earlier is because Nebula Requiem is the best for somebody like Muzan. So yeah, he had made this form specifically for Muzan because that was his goal, right? That was the whole point of training. That was the whole point of becoming a Demon Slayer. That was the whole point of him choosing this life. So with the selfless state, he's like literally perception bliss Muzan, remembering that he has like, you know, the ability to use the 5 steps, even when he doesn't use the cosmic eraser. And Tanjiro had obviously gotten stronger thanks to the Hashira training. Even though he was just training the others and not actually training with the Hashira, that still would have made him stronger. So of course, with his Demon Slayer mark, which made him even more stronger, so this makes even more sense, Tanjiro was able to perception bliss Muzan, who was extremely nerfed from, again, Tamayo's plan. And with this being said, he would then, of course, use Nebula Requiem to basically, and what Nebula Requiem does is basically it hits the opponents with multiple different strikes from each part of their vitals of their bodies. Basically, Tanjiro kept on hitting him like he was inside of a nebula. It would feel like that for the likes of Muzan, as dude felt like every single part of himself was getting crushed on impact, and there was nothing he could do about it. As Tanjiro was slashing and hitting at such precise locations, it would actually feel that way to him. And of course, with Tanjiro doing this incredible movement and doing it ridiculously well, the other Demon Slayers would chime in to obviously help Tanjiro make it till daybreak, which of course that would happen. Of course, Tanjiro using Nebula, using his third form, Nebula Requiem, this many times, would obviously be extremely exhausted when everything was said and done. But as the sun comes out, then Muzan basically was like in a crushed looking state after getting hit with Nebula Requiem so many times, and Tanjiro basically never stopping that form, which it can go on for pretty much as long as his fourth form can. This would ultimately lead to the end of Muzan, as he would get burned up by the sun. And this is where we would then see Nezuko make her way out of the building, like that, you know, iconic scene as we see in the main timeline, where it would be revealed that Nezuko, thanks to the serum, had become a human again, with Tanjiro picking her up and being happy to see that his sister was back to normal, in which he would fall out immediately due to the fact that, well, he's Tanjiro, and he just did all that fighting, so obviously he's tired and exhausted, and honestly, if I'm being real, on the brink of death. The Demon Slayers win, and they win extreme death, despite the fact that they still had better numbers. Obviously, most of the Demon Slayers will still end up dying, the Hashira, because they got their Demon Slayer marks, and you know what that means. So, with this all being said, this would basically be where we would see the end to the story, as we would see Tanjiro smiling, as he was happy that he could defend his family, and he was happy that he was able to invent his own breathing style and galaxy breathing that was able to allow him to pursue everything that he wanted to do, which was basically turn his sister back into a normal human, as we would see Nezuko's smile, as this is again where we would see the screen fade to black, as this would be the end to What If Tanjiro Had Galaxy Breathing. I hope you guys all did end up enjoying this What If. I just kind of had this sitting on my desk. I had the forms obviously written down and stuff, but it wasn't really like scripted or anything. So I hope it was still, effective and you still liked it. Thanks for all the support on the usually what ifs. Thanks for all the support in general. Shout out to everybody who leaves comments and what if suggestions. I really appreciate it. And I'm gonna be getting up out of here. I'll catch you guys in the next what if. I actually haven't kept you all that long today because the video isn't like an hour long. But yeah, Tanjiro what ifs are just not gonna be that long because, well, the story is short, and Tanjiro, when he's really powerful, well, he's really powerful. So yeah, God bless. See you guys in the next what if. I have been Ian and what ifs, and I'm out. I'll see you guys next time out. Deuces.